young couple set out for one final hike through Red Rock Canyon before welcoming their first child. But they never made it back. No calls, no clues, just gone, swallowed by the vast Nevada desert. For years, the case went cold, until one morning, a jogger and his dog stumbled upon something beneath a rocky ledge. What they found rewrote everything investigators believed. Under the blazing Nevada sun, Danielle Caldwell shielded her eyes against the harsh glare bouncing off the red sandstone cliffs. At 29, she was no stranger to these weekend searches. The crunch of gravel under her boots had become familiar, a sound she associated with hope, however faint. Taking a sip from her warm water bottle, she scanned the landscape. "Danny, maybe we should head back," called Marcus, a loyal volunteer who'd joined her every month for the past 2 years. His shirt clung to him with sweat, the sun unrelenting. Danielle glanced around. Only 7 people today. At one point, there had been 15, but time has a way of draining hope. What began as urgent rescue efforts had shifted into quiet searches for something no one wanted to find. Final answers. She nodded. "Yeah, let's wrap it up." Her sister Marissa had been 7 months pregnant when she and her husband Ethan vanished without a trace. That was 4 years ago. Danielle, now alone after losing both parents in a car crash 6 years earlier, had made it her mission to keep looking. She marked today's area on her GPS, just as she'd done every weekend. While the police had archived the case long ago, only acting on new leads, Danielle refused to move on. "Let's pack it in," she called out, her voice echoing across the canyon. "Double-check your gear." By the time they reached the lot, the team began loading their cars. Danielle popped her trunk and tossed in her backpack. Her phone buzzed to life, the signal finally returning after hours in the canyon's dead zone. The screen lit up, several missed calls, texts, voicemails, all from one name. Detective Raymond Chen. Heart racing, she returned the call. One ring, then his voice, calm but urgent. "Danielle, thank goodness. I've been trying to reach you for hours." "Sorry, detective. We were out in the canyon. What's going on? Is something wrong?" "Are you still at Red Rock?" "Yes, we're near the visitor center. Why?" There was a brief silence, background chatter coming through the line. "There's been a development in your sister's case. A hiker found something this morning. We believe it may be linked to Marissa." The water bottle slipped from Danielle's grip, hitting the pavement. Sarah and Marcus, nearby, rushed to her side. "What did they find?" Danielle asked, her voice nearly lost to shock. "I'd rather explain in person," the detective replied. "Can you meet us near White Rock Hills Loop? I'll send the coordinates." "I'm on my way." She hung up, looked at the others, and said softly, "They found something. We need to go." Without hesitation, Sarah squeezed her hand. "We're with you." Danielle's phone buzzed again with the location. It was a 45-minute drive. 3 other team members offered to come. They formed a small convoy, driving through terrain that gradually shifted from the iconic red cliffs to pale, rugged limestone. White Rock Hills Loop wasn't popular. It was remote, steep, and difficult to reach. But as they approached, they spotted multiple police vehicles gathered near the trailhead. Danielle parked, hands trembling. Detective Chen greeted her and gestured toward a vehicle. "It's about a mile from here. Terrain's too rough for anything but our trucks." They climbed into 2 police SUVs and set off across a barely visible trail. The ride was rough, the tension heavier with each bump. Finally, the vehicles stopped near a shaded area. Crime scene tape, investigators, and search crews moved carefully around a cluster of rocks. Danielle stepped out. Detective Chen walked beside her. "I need to prepare you for what we've found," he said quietly. It's not good." She nodded, her voice caught in her throat. Each step felt heavy, like walking through water, her body moving only because she forced it to. As they approached the shaded area, a man stood beside a German shepherd. Detective Chen made the introduction. "Danielle, this is Malcolm Brandt. He's the one who made the discovery this morning." Malcolm looked to be in his mid-40s, his skin weathered by the sun, but his eyes were calm and sincere. He removed his baseball cap with quiet respect. "I'm truly sorry for what you're going through," he said gently. "I was out here with Bella." He nodded to the dog. "Trying a new trail I'd never taken before, tougher than what I'm used to." Bella ran ahead and came back with something in her mouth. Danielle followed his gaze to the evidence table nearby, her breath caught. Carefully labeled and photographed, the items included what looked like bones, human, pale, a radius bone, part of a forearm. "I used to be a paramedic," Malcolm explained softly. "I recognized it right away. Called 911 as soon as I realized." Detective Chen led Danielle closer. "After Mr. Brandt's call, we sent a forensic team out right away. Last night's windstorm, strongest we've seen all year, likely exposed remains that had been hidden until now." Danielle's eyes welled as she stared at the bones, but it was the next item on the table that made her legs give out. A larger bone, a tibia. Still attached to it was surgical hardware. "This is how we were able to confirm it's likely your sister," said the detective, pointing to the metal piece. "You mentioned Marissa had knee surgery?" Danielle nodded faintly. 3 years before she vanished. Skiing accident. She had a plate and pins put in. "The serial number on that hardware matches her medical file," the detective confirmed. "We're still waiting for DNA, but this is her." Danielle gasped, the sound breaking from her like a sob. "Oh God, it's really her." Sarah, one of the search volunteers, was already there, wrapping an arm around her to keep her upright. But Detective Chen wasn't finished. "There's more," he said quietly. Smaller bones were found in a crevice near the cliff. Danielle froze. "The forensic anthropologist believes they are consistent with a late-term fetus." The words hit like a punch. Marissa's baby. Some of the bones showed signs of exposure to scavengers, a harsh reality in this part of the desert. Danielle couldn't stop the tears now. 4 years of clinging to the hope that maybe they were out there somewhere, alive, lost, waiting to be found, collapsed in a single moment. "What about Ethan?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Did you find him?" Detective Chen shook his head. "Not yet. No remains we've recovered so far match a male. The team is expanding the search area, but nothing yet." "But they were together," Danielle insisted. "They posted a photo that morning, right here, from the canyon." "We know," Chen said carefully. "That's one of the things we're reviewing. Without evidence of Mr. Voss's remains or any other persons involved, we have to explore all possibilities." Danielle stared at him. "You think Ethan had something to do with this?" Her voice rose in disbelief. "That's insane. He loved her. They tried for years to have a child. He was a surgeon. He helped people." "I understand," the detective replied calmly. "But in a case like this, we have to look at every angle. The fact that only Marissa's remains have been found and that they were deliberately hidden raises questions." Danielle shook her head. "Ethan wasn't even an experienced hiker. Neither of them were. I told them not to go, especially with Marissa so far along. They said it would just be a short hike. The idea that he could have come this far off trail, done something like this, it doesn't make sense. Sometimes the people we know best still have secrets," the detective said gently. "But you're right. There's still a lot we don't know. That's why we're reopening everything." He pointed toward the rocky overhang in the distance, now marked with bright tape. The remains were found there, possibly untouched for years, until last night's storm finally dislodged them. Danielle's voice was faint. "So, what happens now?" "We'll transport everything to the coroner's office for full analysis. DNA testing will confirm identity. We'll also need a sample from you, since you're next of kin. From today, this becomes an active investigation again." Danielle nodded slowly, the weight of it all settling in. Then she walked over to Malcolm Brandt, who stood quietly with Bella by his side. "Thank you," she said, her voice cracking. "Thank you for calling it in, for not turning away. Malcolm's eyes were filled with empathy. I just wish it hadn't been this kind of news. Bella and I hike here all the time, but we'd never taken that trail before. I guess we were meant to find it. Would it be okay, Danielle asked, voice trembling, if I reached out later to thank you properly? Marissa, she would have wanted that. Of course, Malcolm replied. The detective has all my info. Take your time. Take all the time you need, Detective Chen said gently, approaching once more. The forensic team will be here a while longer, but there's nothing more you need to see today. We'll need you to come by the station for the DNA sample and to review the case records. The walk back to the parking lot felt like a blur. Danielle couldn't recall the steps she took, only the weight dragging her down. When they arrived, she noticed more media vans had gathered, cameras flashing, reporters calling out, but none of it registered. She felt hollow, her mind barely processing the noise. You can follow us to the station, the detective said, or if you'd rather, I can have one of my officers drive your car and you ride with me. Danielle looked down at her trembling hands, the car keys still clutched tightly. I don't think I should drive. That's okay, completely understandable. He gestured to a young officer nearby. Officer Martinez will take care of your vehicle. Handing over the keys, Danielle slid into the front seat of the detective's car. Through the window, she caught one final glimpse of the canyon, the place that had swallowed her sister for 4 years, finally beginning to reveal the truth. The police department building came into view, sleek glass, concrete, and sharp lines reflecting the harsh Nevada sun. Inside, the air was cool and busy. Officers moved efficiently, conversations low and purposeful. Detective Chen led her past security and down a corridor until they entered a small exam room where a forensic technician waited. The woman wore a calm expression and a badge that read, Teresa Hoffman. This won't take long, she said softly. I just need a quick cheek swab. Danielle sat still as the cotton touched the inside of her mouth. That's it, Teresa said. We'll rush the comparison. Should have results in a couple of days. Chen nodded his thanks, then brought Danielle upstairs to the Criminal Investigations Division. His office was small but tidy. Case files lined up neatly, a whiteboard full of notes in the corner. He pulled a thick folder from the shelf. The name on the tab hit Danielle like a wave. Marissa Caldwell. I've gone over the file, he said, but I want to revisit everything. Sometimes details that seemed small back then matter more now. Let's start with that Sunday, October 14th, 2018. Tell me everything you remember. Danielle exhaled slowly, searching her memory. She called me that morning, around 8. She sounded excited, said Ethan had the day off, and they wanted to go hiking. I told her not to. She was 36 weeks pregnant. And she'd had previous surgery? Yes, her knee about 3 years before. It healed, but with the pregnancy weight, it had started bothering her again. I told her it was a bad idea. Chen took notes as she spoke. But they went anyway, Danielle added. She said her doctor told her to stay active, that walking would help with swelling, back pain, even help the baby settle into position. Danielle paused. I told her to walk at the mall or just around the neighborhood, somewhere cool, safe, but Ethan had been working a lot. They wanted time together. For the next 2 hours, Chen went over every angle. Ethan's family, his parents gone, one brother in Ohio, Marissa's friends, mostly young moms, their finances, stable but not lavish, and any changes in behavior before they vanished. Chen listened carefully. I know this is difficult, but your sister's remains were found in a remote location, no trace of her husband. That leaves us with possibilities we have to consider. Danielle's eyes narrowed. You mean you think he did this? We don't know yet, but in some cases the missing person, the one not found, may be responsible. But why? They were happy. They waited years for that baby. Sometimes people hide things. Financial problems, infidelity, addictions. We'll look at everything. There's nothing to find, Danielle said firmly. I hope you're right. He closed the folder, his tone serious now. But I want you to be cautious. This case is public again. When that happens, people involved, or people with something to hide, can act unpredictably. If Ethan is still out there, he might try to reach you. Or if someone else was involved, they could feel threatened. You think I'm in danger? I think it's smart to be alert. Strange calls, someone watching, anything that feels off. You call me immediately. She nodded, still trying to process everything. And the search team? Did they find anything else? Not yet, he said. They expanded the area. No more remain so far. We'll continue tomorrow, weather permitting. We're also bringing in cadaver dogs to assist. They walked together back through the station, her exhaustion setting in deep now. Near the elevator, an officer approached with a set of keys. Ms. Caldwell, he said, Officer Martinez asked me to return these to you. Thank you, she replied softly, taking them. The drive home was quiet. Turning into her driveway, Danielle felt the full weight of the day settle on her chest. The garage door lowered behind her, sealing her inside, not just her home, but the new reality that had begun the moment she picked up that call. The house felt impossibly quiet. Danielle dropped her keys on the entry table and barely made it to the living room before collapsing onto the couch. The full weight of the day finally crashed over her. The silence broke as her sobs filled the room, raw, uncontrollable, and shaking her to her core. Her eyes wandered to the family photos still resting on the built-in shelves. In every frame, a memory. And now, she was the only one left. Her parents, gone in a car accident on their anniversary. Marissa, gone too. And the child that was never born. Their remains left scattered in the desert like forgotten fragments of a life that could have been. The silence became unbearable. She got up, numb with exhaustion, and headed to her bedroom, but she knew she wouldn't sleep. On instinct, she reached for her laptop and opened Facebook, something she rarely used, but tonight she needed to know more about the man who had found her sister, Malcolm Brandt. His profile was public, filled with exactly what she expected: scenic trails, panoramic views, and Bella, his loyal dog, always nearby. As she scrolled, one photo made her pause. Malcolm stood outside a small cafe, holding a slice of lavender honey cake. His caption read, "Best cake I've had in ages. This little place near Valley of Fire is a hidden gem." The word cake hit her like a wave. Marissa had loved baking. Even after stepping away from her pastry job to prepare for motherhood, she filled the house with warm, sweet scents. Butter, vanilla, fresh bread. Danielle could still feel the comfort of it. Staring at Malcolm's post, Danielle made a decision. She would thank him, not with words or something store-bought, but with something personal, something Marissa would have done. She would bake him a cake, but to do that, she needed Marissa's handwritten recipe book. It had to be in her old house, a place Danielle hadn't visited in years. There was still daylight. She couldn't wait until morning. The walk there was short, only 10 minutes through the quiet neighborhood the sisters had chosen so they could live close to each other. But tonight, every familiar tree, every porch light felt touched by grief. As the sky turned to soft amber, she arrived. The house looked unchanged, still tidy, still familiar, but worn down by time. An overgrown lawn, old newspapers stacked on the porch. Danielle had tried to keep it up at first, paying bills and maintaining it as best she could. But as time passed, she had to let most things go. She unlocked the door with her old key. The air inside was thick, no longer filled with Marissa's comforting scent, but with the must of a house left untouched. Upstairs, in the master bedroom, she searched for the notebook, the one filled with her sister's carefully guarded recipes. It wasn't in the obvious places, not on the shelves, not in the drawers. Then she remembered. The mirror above the bed. Marissa once proudly showed her how it opened like a secret panel. Danielle reached up, found the latch, and the mirror swung open. There it was, a leather-bound notebook, Marissa's recipes, embossed in gold across the cover. She sat on the edge of the bed, slowly flipping through its pages. Every line in Marissa's neat handwriting felt like a piece of her soul preserved on paper. Then, a sound. A low, steady engine outside. Common enough in a neighborhood, but something about it made Danielle uneasy. She moved quietly to the window. A dark sedan sat at the curb. 3 men stepped out, walking toward the house with focused intent. No hesitation, no small talk. The one in front wore a fedora. Something about it tugged at her memory. Danielle's heart pounded. She stayed quiet, unsure of what to do. Something in their posture told her they weren't here by accident. Then she heard it. The faint, unmistakable sound of someone working the front lock. Panic shot through her. Her phone? She'd left it at home. She turned and ran for the kitchen, remembering the landline. As she rounded the corner, her hip clipped a small table and knocked a porcelain vase to the floor. It shattered with a sharp, echoing crash. Everything went still. The noise at the door stopped. Danielle froze, listening. Through the curtain, she saw the men retreat. Quick, deliberate steps back to their car. The one in the fedora turned slightly before getting in. Her breath caught. The way he moved, the slope of his shoulders. That profile, it looked like Ethan. But it couldn't be. She stood there, unmoving, until the car finally pulled away into the dusk. Then, still shaking, she found a broom in the kitchen and began to sweep up the shards of broken porcelain. The task, simple, ordinary, was the only thing that slowed her racing thoughts. Who were those men? And if one of them really was Ethan, why didn't he have a key to his own house? Why try to force his way in? And who were the others with him? Danielle instinctively reached for the kitchen phone, but when she lifted the receiver, silence. Of course, the line was dead. She hadn't paid that bill in years. Detective Chen's warning echoed in her mind. After new evidence surfaces, unusual activity can follow. This certainly qualified. She needed to get out of there, fast. Hurrying back upstairs, she snatched the recipe book. Her eyes briefly caught on a photo resting nearby. Ethan smiling at a medical conference in Reno. And there it was, the hat. The same brown fedora the man outside had worn. He'd bought it as a joke once, saying it made him feel like Indiana Jones. Danielle felt a cold chill run down her spine. Clutching both the photo and the book tightly, she did one last sweep from the windows. The street was quiet. The dark sedan was gone. Still, every nerve in her body told her not to linger. She locked the house and started the walk home, holding her sister's notebook close to her chest. The short walk, once pleasant, now felt like a maze of shadows and unknowns. Every rustle made her flinch. Every passing car felt like it might slow down. When she finally reached her front door, locked it, and threw the deadbolt, she could breathe again. She grabbed her phone and called Detective Chen. He picked up almost immediately. "Detective, something just happened," she said, breathless. "At Marissa's house. I think someone tried to break in. 3 men. I was still inside when I heard them at the front door, working the lock. When I knocked over a vase, they ran." "Are you safe now?" Chen asked urgently. "Are you home?" "Yes, I'm here, locked in. But Detective, I think one of them might have been Ethan." There was a pause on the line. "You think? Did you see him clearly?" "No," Danielle admitted. "Just a glimpse of his profile as he got into the car. But the way he moved, the hat, it was his, I remember. And if it was Ethan, why would he need to break in?" "What kind of car was it?" Chen asked. "Dark sedan, black or navy, I couldn't tell in the light. I didn't get the plate." "I'll send a patrol to check the area," Chen said. "And I'll ask neighbors if they saw anything, but without more details." "Can't you post someone at the house?" she asked. "What if they come back?" "I understand your concern," Chen replied, "but I can't assign an officer without stronger grounds. We'll increase patrols and alert the locals to stay watchful. If they see anything, we'll respond immediately." After securing his promise, Danielle ended the call and set the phone down, leaning against the kitchen counter, her adrenaline finally crashing. The recipe book sat nearby. She opened it with trembling fingers, her eyes landing on a familiar page, Marissa's honey cake. A simple comfort, and her original plan, to bake one for Malcolm, still mattered. She reviewed the ingredients. She'd need eggs, and the good vanilla extract, the kind Marissa always swore made the difference. She grabbed her purse and a short shopping list. The grocery store was nearby, a well-lit strip with a gas station and a 24-hour donut shop. Familiar, safe, or so she thought. The lot was bright under neon lights as Danielle pulled in and parked near the entrance. She reached for her reusable bags and froze. Movement at the gas station. 3 men exited the convenience store. One of them wore the hat. She dropped low in her seat, heart pounding, and cautiously peeked over the dashboard. The men stood in a loose circle by a dark sedan, locked in what looked like a tense discussion. She couldn't hear clearly, but pieces of their conversation drifted in the air. "Ledger has to be careful with the search," said the man in the fedora. The third kept looking around, jumpy. Danielle's breath caught. Ledger? What ledger? What could they possibly be looking for? Then, a fourth man appeared, younger, wearing cartoon-printed veterinary scrubs. He jogged toward them with a small cooler in his hands. They exchanged hurried words. Then all 4 climbed into the sedan. Danielle sat frozen. Every instinct told her to stay put, to call Chen right now, to report everything. But just as she reached for her phone, as the black sedan pulled away from the gas station, Danielle felt a powerful instinct take over, one she didn't stop to question. If that was Ethan, she needed answers. She needed to know where he had been all this time, why he was sneaking around with strangers, why he would try to break into the home he once shared with her sister, and why Marissa, pregnant and full of plans, had ended up buried in the desert, while he had simply vanished. Before doubt could creep in, Danielle started her car and followed. She kept a safe distance at first, 2 car lengths, maybe more, as they wound through city streets. The sedan didn't drive erratically. They used turn signals, obeyed lights, no signs of panic. These men weren't in a hurry. They just didn't want to be noticed. Once they reached the outskirts of Las Vegas, traffic thinned. The sedan turned west, heading onto Highway 160 toward open desert. Danielle's grip on the steering wheel tightened. Where were they going? She knew the highway stretched all the way to Pahrump, but there was nothing but empty sand and silence for miles in between. She hung back farther now, just far enough to barely see their taillights. Reaching for her phone with one hand, she called Detective Chen. "You're what?" he said sharply. "You're following them?" "Yes, I had to." "No, Danielle, absolutely not. Turn around, right now. This is dangerous, and it's not your job to handle it." "But what if it is Ethan?" she pleaded. "What if he's part of something?" "And what's your plan if it is?" Chen snapped. "You're alone, untrained, and you're chasing unknown suspects into the desert, at night. Turn around. Let us handle it." Danielle looked at the dark stretch of road ahead. He was right. She knew it. But her emotions had overridden her better judgment. "Okay," she said finally. "You're right. I'm turning around." She slowed, looking for a safe place to turn. The road shoulder was too soft, but eventually she spotted an old pullout near some construction debris. As she turned the car around, headlights appeared in her rearview mirror. They were coming back. The black sedan was heading straight for her, fast. "Oh no," she whispered. Her phone slipped from her hand as she pressed the accelerator. "Oh no, no." Her car surged forward, but the sedan closed the gap almost instantly. It stayed on her tail, then swerved beside her. In the glow of passing headlights, she saw the man in the fedora, the one she thought might be Ethan, now clearly signaling her to pull over. She ignored him, gripping the wheel, heart pounding. Then, the sedan veered into her lane. Danielle had seconds to react. Hit them, or swerve off the road. She chose the shoulder. The car jolted as the tires hit sand, fishtailing wildly before skidding to a stop in a cloud of dust. She reached for reverse, but it was too late. The sedan had blocked her in. Her doors locked automatically, but panic gripped her. Her phone, it was somewhere under the seat. She watched in horror as the man in the fedora approached, calm, steady, pulling something from the trunk. A tire iron. "Please," she whispered, hands trembling. "Please don't." The glass shattered. Safety cubes sprang across her seat. Hands reached in. They unlocked the door, dragged her out. She kicked and struggled, but it didn't matter. Under the harsh interior light of her own car, she finally saw the man's face. It wasn't Ethan. A wave of relief hit her, but it was short-lived. In seconds, her wrists were zip-tied, a gag forced into her mouth. Another man rifled through her car, taking her phone, her purse, anything that might identify her. Then they shoved her into the back seat of the sedan, wedged between two of them. One was the man she'd seen earlier in Scrubs. Her own car was taken by another member of the group. They were covering their tracks. The inside of the sedan smelled like stale smoke and something chemical. Danielle struggled against the restraints, her wrists burning. The man beside her, Max, she heard someone call him, pressed his hand against her shoulder. "Save your energy," he said, voice heavy with mock sympathy. "You'll need it later." The driver, the one in the fedora, caught her eye in the mirror. "I told you," he said to the others. "It was her. I saw her in the house, recognized her from the news. Her car's windows were cheap, could see right in." Soon after, they blindfolded her. The drive seemed endless, deep into the desert. The tires hummed. Coyotes howled somewhere far off. Eventually, the car slowed. She was pulled from the seat roughly. The blindfold stayed on, but she could feel the grit of sand under her shoes, smell the desert air, hear distant machinery. When the blindfold came off, her vision blurred, then sharpened to reveal a massive, shadowy warehouse in the middle of nowhere. It looked abandoned from the outside, barely lit, windows dark with grime. But the moment they stepped inside, she realized the truth. The lights were blinding. Inside was a maze of clean corridors, locked doors, and sterile rooms. The windows had been tinted from the inside to hide what was really happening here. The man in the fedora pulled off his hat, running his hand through greasy hair. He smirked. "Welcome to our little project," he said. "I'm Rico, that's Max, and over there, that's Chen." Danielle's head spun. Chen? But Detective Chen? They led her past rooms lined with medical beds, some occupied, some not. 4 lines, beeping machines, people in scrubs moving quietly between rooms. They brought her to a bed, leather straps, medical monitors. It looked like a hospital, but it felt like a trap. She struggled, tried to fight, but Max was already tightening the straps. With calm efficiency, they removed the zip ties and secured Danielle's wrists to the bed's built-in restraints. Only then did Rico pull the gag from her mouth. She immediately screamed. Her voice rang off the concrete walls, loud, desperate, full of terror. Rico silenced her with a brutal backhand, snapping her head to the side. "Do that again," he said coolly, "and you won't see another sunrise. Got it?" Danielle nodded, tasting blood on her tongue. Silent tears streamed down her face. "Good girl," Rico smirked. He turned to Max. "Any word from Chad? Did he deal with the car?" "Should be gone by now," Max replied. "He knows the routine." Danielle's voice came out in a whisper. "That hat, where did you get it?" Max laughed darkly. "She knows the hat, Rico." Rico only grinned wider. "Not your concern. Let's focus on what really matters." Then to Max, "Go get our surgeon. This just got even better." Max left, and another man in scrubs began wheeling Danielle's bed down a hallway. The corridor was dim and peeling, fluorescent lights buzzing and flickering above them. They pushed through double doors into what should have been an operating room, but everything about it felt wrong. The equipment was outdated, the lighting harsh and uneven, leaving corners shrouded in shadows. There were no windows, no sound of the outside world. Just the sterile hum of electricity and something sharp in the air, like metal and chemicals. They transferred her to the surgical table. She fought, but it didn't matter. They were fast, practiced. "Keep her quiet," Rico said, "but don't knock her out. We need her awake." A man in scrubs approached with a syringe. Danielle tried to twist away, but hands held her down as the needle pierced her skin. Within moments, her limbs grew heavy, Her mind stayed sharp, but her body betrayed her, limp, exhausted, helpless. The fear didn't fade. It sharpened. Then the double doors flew open. 2 guards dragged someone inside, a figure in tattered clothes, shoved forward like a prisoner. Danielle's breath caught. She recognized the slumped shoulders, the hesitant walk, even in this broken state. Ethan, alive, gaunt, bruised, but alive. Rico's men forced him into surgical scrubs with mechanical precision. "Wash up, Doc," Rico said. "You know the routine." Ethan moved toward the scrub sink, like someone walking through a nightmare he'd lived too many times. But when he turned and saw who was strapped to the table, his face changed completely. "Danny?" The word came out strangled. Danielle's heart pounded. "Please," she managed, her voice barely audible through the haze. "Ethan, it's me. Please don't." His eyes filled with shock, then rage. He spun toward Rico. "Absolutely not. I'm done. I don't care what you do to me. I'm not doing this, especially not to her." Rico raised an eyebrow. "Her? Well, now it all makes sense. Your sister-in-law. No wonder she was inside your house watching us." Ethan's voice cracked. "My house? That's what this is about?" Rico chuckled. "We were just looking for your ledger and some insurance files. Thought we could use them to keep you on the hook, but turns out she was there, watching us, so we made a little detour." He leaned toward Danielle. "She's a much better bargaining chip than any piece of paper, don't you think?" Danielle's mind reeled. Ledger? Insurance files? What had Ethan been pulled into? Rico's voice dropped its sarcasm. "The boss is getting impatient. Dominic wants you back. You've stalled long enough, so here's the deal. You start cooperating, get back on the table, or she becomes the next donor. Your call." Ethan's fist clenched. His voice dropped. "You're a monster." Rico just smiled. "Tick-tock, Doc." Danielle watched Ethan's face as everything inside him crumbled. 4 years of questions played out across his eyes. Regret, rage, guilt, and finally, resignation. "Fine," he said. "I'll do it. But she doesn't get touched. That's the deal." Rico clapped mockingly. "What a hero. Family bonds. So touching." Just then, the door opened again. The man from the gas station, the one in veterinary scrubs, wheeled in a stretcher. On it was a young woman, unconscious, unmoving. "Move her," Rico said, gesturing toward Danielle. They unstrapped her and placed her in a wheelchair, rolling her into a corner, close enough to watch everything, but far enough to do nothing. Danielle caught Ethan's eyes again. The pain in them was unmistakable, the apology unspoken. She didn't know what this place was, but Ethan had been trapped in it. And now, she was too. "All right, Doc," Rico said, rubbing his hands together. "Time to prove you're still useful, and while you're at it, you're going to train our new recruit." He pointed to the man in scrubs. "Meet Dr. Polson. He's a vet, but we figure surgery is surgery, right?" "You can't be serious," Ethan growled. "You can't perform human operations with a vet. That's not how this works." Rico leaned in, eyes cold. "It is now." "Then you better be a good teacher," Rico said sharply, cutting Ethan off mid-protest. "Because Dr. Polson here, he's your new assistant. Train him up right, or else—" He gave Danielle a deliberate glance. Ethan's jaw tightened. He closed his eyes for a moment, just long enough to swallow the fury and dread, then turned toward the operating table, every step weighted with resignation. He moved with grim precision, falling back into the muscle memory of someone who once saved lives for a living. Across from him, Polson, the man in veterinary scrubs, looked anxious and eager, trying to look capable but clearly out of his depth. "Just observe for now," Ethan said quietly. He began setting up anesthesia, his hands more controlled now. The routine gave him just enough space to pretend he had a choice, but that illusion shattered when a towering figure entered the room, all muscle, no subtlety, and grabbed Danielle from the wheelchair. She staggered, still unsteady from the drug. "Where are you taking her?" Ethan snapped, pausing mid-prep. "Not your concern," Rico said flatly. "But don't worry, Doc. She stays alive, as long as you stay useful. That's the deal." Danielle barely kept her footing as the man dragged her through the warehouse's grim corridors. Each step was harder than the last, the lingering effects of the injection still weighing her limbs down. They stopped at a heavy steel door. The man unlocked it and shoved her inside. The room was small, windowless, with cracked concrete walls and a single bare bulb overhead. A thin mattress sat on a metal frame, and a bucket in the corner confirmed what kind of place this was. "Won't be long," he said with a smirk that made her skin crawl. "Boss likes the new ones obedient. Gonna start you off right." The door slammed shut. Danielle stood frozen in the silence. Her heart raced, but her instincts kicked in. She needed to think. The drug was wearing off. She could move more steadily now. Pacing the room, she tested her coordination. The bed drew her eye. Something about it felt off. She sat down carefully, and her hand brushed something beneath the pillow. A pen. Small, simple, and hidden. Someone had left it there for a reason. Digging further, she felt a slip of paper caught between the mattress and frame, then several. Her breath caught. Ethan's handwriting. The first page, a copy of his wedding vows to Marissa. She remembered the words. "I promise to love you through every late shift, every broken cake, every joy and sorrow that life brings." The other pages, letters, addressed to Marissa, messages of guilt, confusion, love, and fear. Whatever Ethan had been pulled into, it had broken him. Then the lock clicked again. She shoved the pen and papers into her jeans, covering the bulge with her shirt just as the door swung open. The same brute entered, but this time he wasn't alone. He carried items. Leather straps, restraints, and a riding crop. Danielle's stomach turned. "Time for your orientation," he said, with a leer that made her blood run cold. "Everyone goes through it, but with you, it's gonna be special." "No," Danielle backed into the wall. "You don't have to do this." "Sure I do, it's part of the job," he said, stepping closer, savoring her fear, "and I happen to enjoy it." Danielle's mind raced. The pen pressed against her hip. She had one shot. She had to let him get close. "Please," she said, voice trembling, playing on fear that was all too real. "I won't fight. I promise." "That's what they all say," he muttered, grabbing her shoulders. "But I've got instructions." His breath was sour with smoke and alcohol. And then she acted, spitting in his face. His mood shifted instantly. His hand flew across her cheek, sending her to the floor. Her vision blurred, but her hand found the pen. He dropped to one knee, reaching for the straps. Danielle struck. One swift, desperate motion and the pen drove into his eye. His scream was animalistic. He rolled away, blood streaming down his face. Danielle scrambled backward, eyes locked on the gun holstered at his side. As he writhed in pain, she lunged. Her hand closed around the weapon, just as his hand latched onto her ankle. "I'll end this right now," he shouted, rage burning in his one remaining eye. Despite the injury, his grip was powerful. He started dragging her back toward him, but she brought the weapon around. "Let go," she screamed. He didn't. She saw the glint of steel, a knife in his boot. She fired. The blast was deafening in the small room. The bullet hit his leg, and he howled again, releasing her. She kicked away, scrambling to her feet, the gun trembling in her hands. She waited for guards to come bursting in, but none came. That's when she realized the room was soundproof. Screams didn't escape. But now she had a weapon. She had a head start, and she had Ethan's letters in her pocket. She wasn't broken. Not yet. The door was locked. Danielle aimed at the lock mechanism and fired twice. Sparks flew as metal warped under the force of the bullets. She yanked the handle, and the door swung open. The hallway beyond was dim, bathed in eerie green emergency lighting. It felt like a dreamscape of steel and silence. She had no idea where to go, but standing still wasn't an option. She turned left and ran. Bare feet slapped against cold concrete as she navigated the maze of corridors. Her only goal, find a phone, a computer, anything to reach the outside world. Her phone, gone, probably destroyed along with her car. She heard voices ahead and ducked into a shallow alcove. Two men in scrubs walked past, casually discussing something about tomorrow's shipment. Danielle held her breath until their footsteps disappeared. A stairwell appeared on her right. Up or down? She chose up, hoping to find offices, maybe a break room, somewhere she could call for help. But she hadn't made it far when arms wrapped around her from behind. A hand clamped over her mouth before she could scream. Her finger tightened on the trigger, but the man whispered urgently, "Don't shoot. I'm a friend. Ethan sent me." She struggled anyway, not daring to believe. "Please," the voice said. "My name's Tom. Ethan saved me. We've been planning this, waiting for a chance to shut it all down. I saw what happened in the OR. We don't have time. We have to move now." Slowly, he removed his hand from her mouth. Danielle spun around, raising the gun. The man, thin, older, eyes sunken, lifted his shirt to reveal a long surgical scar across his abdomen. "7 days ago I was supposed to die," he said quickly. "Botched surgery, internal bleeding. They were going to let me go, but Ethan fixed it. He went against Dominic's orders. I owe him everything." Danielle's voice trembled. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" "You don't," he admitted. "But in about 2 minutes, they're going to find that guard you shot. And when that happens, this place locks down. We'll both be trapped. So you can trust me, or take your chances alone." She hesitated, then slowly lowered the gun. "Where's Ethan?" she asked. "Still in surgery. He can't leave, but he told me if I ever had a chance to run, to take it. And now, you're here. This is it." Tom glanced over his shoulder. "My truck's in the motor pool. Come on." Against every instinct, Danielle followed. Tom led the way with confidence, clearly familiar with the facility. They passed workers, but no one stopped them. He looked like someone with a job to do, and Danielle, hidden under shadow and silence, passed unnoticed. The motor pool was a cavernous garage filled with dusty vehicles. Tom's old F-150 sat near the gate. He handed her a cap, sunglasses, and a hair tie. "Put these on. Look like you belong." She pulled her hair up and slid the glasses on, even though it was night. Tom started the engine, and she held her breath as they rolled toward the checkpoint. The guard didn't even blink, just waved them through. They were out. Tom accelerated once they hit the open road, pushing the truck faster, putting miles between them and the nightmare. The desert stretched endlessly around them, stars sharp against the black sky. "There's a gas station about 30 miles from here," Tom said. "We'll call from there." Danielle's voice broke through the silence. "What was that place?" Tom didn't sugarcoat it. "Organ trafficking, run by a man named Dominic Torino. They take people who won't be missed, homeless, addicts, the undocumented, and keep them just alive enough to harvest what they need. Kidneys, livers, corneas, even skin. Whatever brings in cash." Danielle felt the nausea rise. "And Ethan?" she asked. "They've had him for 4 years, forced to operate. He resisted, especially lately. That's why they came looking for leverage. That ledger they mentioned, it's real. It has records, buyers, procedures, transactions, enough to collapse the whole network if it got out." She swallowed hard. "Where's Dominic now?" "Separate building, same complex. He rarely steps foot in the warehouse, leaves it all to Rico and the others, but he's the one pulling every string." The gas station finally appeared, glowing like a lighthouse in the dark. Tom parked far from the lights. They hurried to the payphone. Danielle's hands trembled as she picked up the receiver and dialed. "My name is Danielle Caldwell," she told the 911 operator. "I've been held in a warehouse where people are being harvested for organs. There are others still inside. We need help. Now." Her voice was sharp, urgent, unwavering. Tom took the phone next. "North Las Vegas, Industrial Zone, Building 47B off Highway 604. It's a large warehouse complex. Armed guards, victims still inside. There's also an administrative building nearby. That's where Dominic operates from." Danielle leaned back in against the wall, breathing hard. "Please," she added, "contact Detective Raymond Chen. This is connected to the Marissa Voss case. The dispatcher told them to stay put. Help was on the way. Tom parked the truck in a shadowed corner where they could see the road but remain unseen. Not long now. Not everyone in there's a monster, Tom said quietly. Some are trapped. Debts, blackmail, fear for their families. But Rico and his crew, they enjoy it. They believe in it. Danielle's eyes didn't leave the road. How many victims at a time? 15, 20 maybe, Tom replied. Some don't last long. Others, well, his voice trailed off into silence. But the sound of sirens, faint, then growing, promised that silence would soon be broken. Within 20 minutes, the desert highway was no longer empty. A silent wave of darkened vehicles swept in, headlights off, sirens unused, SWAT vans, unmarked patrol cars, ambulances staged further back. It was a massive, precisely coordinated response. No chaos, just quiet purpose. One patrol car split off and approached the gas station. 2 officers stepped out cautiously, confirmed Danielle and Tom's identities, and escorted them to a mobile command post set up a safe distance from the target site. The operation was being led by Captain Torres, a no-nonsense woman with a tactical mind and steady presence. Danielle was quick to clarify. Ethan is not a suspect. He's a victim. They've been forcing him. We understand, Torres said, listening intently. We'll get him out, along with the others. Tom, still pale but composed, provided details, building layouts, guard locations, where the victims were kept. We've got what we need, Captain Torres confirmed. Now I need you two to stay here, where it's safe. They were placed in a nearby patrol car with a clear view of the road leading toward the warehouse. Danielle held on to the empty gun she'd taken, now a piece of evidence, but something to anchor her still trembling hands. All they could do now was wait, and hope the nightmare that began 4 years ago in Red Rock Canyon would finally end tonight. From their position, Danielle and Tom watched as tactical teams surrounded the compound. Officers in black gear moved in perfect silence, signaling through hand gestures as they fanned out along the perimeter. Then the first gunshots broke the stillness. Danielle flinched instinctively. Tom placed a calming hand on her shoulder. They're trained for this, he said quietly. But the sounds of battle didn't fade. Instead, they intensified. Short bursts, then shouting, flashbangs, the pop of breaching charges. The warehouse lit up with the flare of muzzle flashes. For nearly 40 minutes, it continued. Bursts of violence, eerie silences, then renewed conflict from a different wing. Danielle's hand was white-knuckled on the door handle, every part of her screaming to run inside, to find Ethan. And then, it stopped. Officers began emerging from the complex, no longer crouched or sprinting, but moving methodically, clearing rooms, securing hallways, making arrests. Then came the line of detainees, hands cuffed behind backs, some bloodied, some dazed. Danielle recognized Rico first, his signature fedora gone, a cut bleeding above one eye. Behind him, Max, limping and scowling. Then the so-called doctor, in his ridiculous scrubs, face ghost white with fear. Another guard, the one who'd likely disposed of her car, stumbled out behind them, barely able to stand. Tom counted softly. That's at least 20, maybe more? But it was the victims who brought tears to Danielle's eyes. They came next, slowly, painfully. Some wheeled out on stretchers, eyes closed, IVs still in their arms. Others walked with help from medics, blinking against the lights like they hadn't seen the sky in years. Ambulances rolled forward, triage areas formed. Paramedics worked quickly, sorting survivors by need. Danielle scanned the crowd. "Where's Dominic?" Tom said beside her, tense. "I don't see him." Neither did she. Then she spotted officers rushing toward the administrative building Tom had mentioned earlier. And then Ethan, walking slowly, flanked by 2 officers, his body thinner, his shoulders hunched. But he was alive. A paramedic guided him to the rear of an ambulance, helping him sit as they checked his vitals. Danielle pushed open the car door. "I need to see him." "Ma'am, please," the officer in the front seat began. He's my brother-in-law. He's been missing for 4 years, please. A quick radio call, a nod. Stay near the vehicles, the scene's not fully secure. Danielle didn't wait. She ran, Tom right behind her. She wove through medics and officers, her eyes locked on Ethan. He looked up at the sound of her voice. His face changed instantly, a storm of emotions playing across it. Grief, shame, relief, disbelief. He tried to stand, wavered. They were just 10 feet apart when Danielle saw it. Movement in the corner of her eye. A man, emerging from the administrative building, expensive suit, wild eyes, both hands holding pistols. No one had to say his name. Danielle knew. Dominic Torino. He moved like a predator in free fall, all desperation and rage, firing into the air, then turning toward the row of police vehicles. Officers dove for cover. Shouts erupted. And then, everything unfolded in slow motion. Ethan's face twisted, not with fear, but with fury. 4 years of silence, guilt, and torment ignited into a single, focused act of defiance. He shoved past the paramedic and charged from Dominic's blind side, tackling him to the ground with everything he had left. They hit the asphalt hard, weapons flying from Dominic's hands. They struggled, wrestling for control. Ethan's knowledge of anatomy gave him precision, but Dominic fought with the strength of desperation. They rolled, limbs tangling, gravel grinding into skin. Ethan managed to grab one pistol, flinging it away. His knee drove into Dominic's wrist, forcing the second weapon loose. In seconds, Ethan had the upper hand, pinning Dominic to the ground, gun in hand, barrel pressed against his head. "You killed her," Ethan growled, voice raw. "You killed my wife, my baby." Pinned beneath him, Dominic sneered through bloody teeth. "Go ahead, Doc. Do it." The officers surrounding them stood ready, weapons trained, waiting. "She was 8 months pregnant," Ethan choked. "We tried for 6 years to have that child. You murdered her like she was nothing." Dominic's grin widened. "Pull it. You want to. I can see it in your eyes." For a moment, Danielle thought he would. Ethan's finger twitched. His body trembled with the weight of everything he'd endured and everything he'd lost. But then slowly, his arm lowered. "No," he whispered. "I've had enough death because of you. You don't get to make me a killer, too." SWAT officers surged in, pulling Ethan back. Others cuffed Dominic roughly, dragging him to his feet. Even in defeat, his eyes burned with cold arrogance. Danielle rushed to Ethan as his legs buckled. She caught him before he hit the pavement. "That was incredibly stupid," she whispered, holding him, "and incredibly brave. I couldn't let him win, not again." A paramedic stepped in, guiding them back to an ambulance. As Ethan sat, the medic examined him more closely, revealing the damage: poorly healed ribs, old bruises, scars from restraint straps, the marks of beatings. "This is from refusing to operate," Ethan murmured. "They punished me every time I said no." A familiar voice broke through the noise. "Danielle, Mr. Voss." Detective Chen stood nearby, weary but focused. He approached with his notebook in hand. "I know you're both exhausted," he said gently, "but we need your statements. Start from the beginning. Help me understand what happened." Ethan looked away for a moment, then back, and for the first time in years, he told the truth. "I had a gambling problem," he began, voice hollow. "At first it was just poker, a few bets, but by 2018 I owed over $300,000. I thought they were just loan sharks. I didn't know." His voice trailed off as he gestured weakly toward the warehouse. "That day, October 14th, Marissa wanted to go hiking. I agreed, thought it would be our last normal day before I told her everything. We posted a photo. It was geotagged." His voice cracked. "They found us on the trail within an hour." Danielle squeezed his hand. "They demanded payment. I didn't have it. Marissa didn't even know about the debt. She tried to call 911. Dominic shot her. Just like that. Said it was a lesson." Detective Chen took notes, silent but visibly shaken. "They kept me alive, told me I could work it off. Said I owed them a surgeon. They dumped Marissa in the desert, somewhere with coyotes, so she'd scatter." His words broke. For a long time, I thought I deserved it. that I'd caused it. I did what they told me. I operated. I helped them. I became what they wanted. He looked at Danielle, his eyes desperate for forgiveness. But a few weeks ago, on our wedding anniversary, I had a dream. Marissa was there. She said she was waiting for me, but I had to stop the killing, that I had to earn my way back. Chen nodded slowly. The ledger, the records? I kept copies, Ethan said. Buyers, dates, transactions, hidden in the walls of my quarters. I was going to give it to someone, someday. Danielle looked at him, her voice quiet. If I hadn't followed them? You saved lives, Tom said, stepping up with another officer. You called for help. None of this would have happened without you. As formal statements were taken and evidence secured, the warehouse compound began its transformation, from nightmare to crime scene. Danielle and Ethan were seated in the back of a patrol car, waiting for transport to the station. I'm sorry, Ethan whispered, for everything, for Marissa, for the baby, for disappearing, for the pain I caused you. Danielle turned to him. If Marissa found a way to forgive you, maybe I can try too. But Ethan, the gambling, that has to end. It did, he said, long ago, but the debt didn't. He looked out the window at the desert, voice heavy with sorrow. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right, starting with giving them a real goodbye. She nodded, tears traced down her cheeks. Through the rear window, she saw Tom stepping into another police vehicle. Their eyes met briefly. She mouthed, "Thank you." He nodded once. Understood. As the car pulled away, leaving behind the flashing lights and echoes of horror, Danielle and Ethan sat in silence. Not peace, not yet, but something close. The sun had yet to rise, but for the first time in 4 years, they weren't surrounded by darkness. They were moving forward, toward healing, toward justice, and maybe, someday, toward hope.